Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Jeremy Murphy. I am in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I am a life coach, among other things. And I want to introduce, it's pronounced Chinarut? Is that how you pronounce
Yeah,
it?
Chidamar.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
And where are you from? Can you tell us where you live?
Yeah, I'm based out of Southern California in a city called Temecula, California,
Okay,
wine country of Southern California.
cool. Want to let everybody know we want to have a calm, civil discussion about mental health and mental illness today. It's World Mental Health Day, and so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to do that. I have a friend in Australia that I want to recognize. I think her name is Margaret Lambert. She's way at the top. I think she was the first one to subscribe to this blab, but I was talking to her a couple of nights ago, and she reminded me. I brought up the topic of mental health and mental illness, and she reminded me that that today was World Mental Health Day, and so I want to thank her for reminding me of that. I knew there was a national day for that, but I couldn't remember there was also a worldwide event, and it's an issue that I've taken great interest in, and I'll kind of tell you why. And if you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask, and you can either ask in a margin or jump into a seat. I do need to tell you, since I'm an attorney, I want to give you a disclaimer. I'm not attempting to give you legal advice. This is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that, so I don't want you to get that impression either. But my experience is based on a lot of experience with family and friends and former clients that have had mental illness or mental health issues. And so I just wanted to bring the topic forward and get it started. And it's a topic I intend to return to on a regular basis, and maybe not a weekly basis, but I want to make sure the topic gets discussed. And sometimes it's just it's one of those topics we forget about unless we have regular experience with it, or we have explosive situations like this that come up in our lives. We forget that the issue is even there. But I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I have I have a sister who has mental illness. She's bipolar, and she was diagnosed back in 1993. And that's when this issue really exploded for us, for our family. I was in my last semester of law school at Creighton, and I thought everything was on an even keel, and trying to juggle like 21 credit hours or something like that. I had to get special permission to cram in those many hours, and suddenly my sister was in college in California, and suddenly she disappeared. And none of us knew where she was, and just caused our whole family, a lot of heartache, concern. My parents were just really upset and worried. And I have 6 siblings too. I have 6 younger siblings, and the oldest is 7. So there was a lot of worrying going on, but there's also a lot of prayer going on. My father finally went out there to find out what happened. And after a lot of searching for her, he was able to find her. And, she had dropped out of school, moved somewhere else, wasn't able to make rational decisions about what she should be doing or not doing. And so, he brought her back from California to Nebraska. And, this was so close to my law school graduation that I just remember this big cloud of darkness and chaos and confusion. And, I had never really been exposed to the issue, that personally before. And so, I didn't know how to handle it as her brother and friend. And, so we did the best we could. My dad, fortunately, even though he was a dentist, he had a lot of training that was kind of, he had kind of looked at these type of issues when he was going through college and that type of thing, and it had taken interest in them as a medical professional. trying to keep up with the issue and just helping people with mental health issues on a regular basis. And so he was able to help her to some degree. The diagnosis part is tough. And they had trouble diagnosing her and giving a correct diagnosis. And, at first they thought she had schizoaffective disorder. And then that didn't pan out. You start taking prescribing medications and things like that. And you have to test those and see which ones work, which ones are optimal. But it was such a chaotic process. It took us years to get her a good, solid diagnosis. And, once, a psychiatrist realized that she was bipolar and had that label, then he was able to kind of unfold what that meant. And we were kind of unable to unfold what was going on as a family too, to really understand that. But, once we knew that, then we could look for, the manic cycle and then the depressive cycle that occurs after that. And sometimes the cycling is back and forth pretty rapidly. So that continued for a while. And, and ultimately she got stabilized to a great extent, was finally able to graduate from college. That was a huge deal for her to be able to do that. But the issue of genetics and mental illness with family is a big deal. You can talk about some of the problems. Sometimes it's situational. My dad retired from dentistry after practicing for 40 some years, but he retired suddenly and he didn't have a plan. He didn't have an exit plan as to what he was going to do, what his hobbies were going to be, how he was going to spend his time. And, suddenly I think the suddenness of that occurring just kind of triggered something in him. And, suddenly my dad is going through depression, and this was, it was unexpected for us. He was always kind of the rock person in the family, and people would rely on him for help and advice. And suddenly in a role reversal, his 7 children were all being called on to, help him. And boy, if you don't have experience in dealing with people with deep depression and you're suddenly confronted with it within your own family, it is so difficult. I mean, you have to work with the medical team. As a legal professional, I have experience in working with, mental health teams to try to get people stabilized, and that type of thing. So I had some experience in that, but it's just much different to go through that personally. And when you're asked questions and you're trying to communicate and you're not getting answers or feedback, you have to try to do things a little bit differently. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But, ultimately we were able to get him help and medication, and he's finally stabilized too. But I just, I look at my own family, and there are 9 of us. And, I mentioned my dad had situational depression. My sister's bipolar. I had a brother that was in a catastrophic bike accident. And then he had, situational, basically post-traumatic stress disorder. And, my brother also served in the military. So, there may have been post-traumatic stress, from some of the military things. He was over in, not exactly in combat zones, but close to some of them. So there could have been some factors there that may have affected that. And then also a sister that has depression that's kind of periodic, that's at a much lower level than my sister that's bipolar. But, 4 of the 9 of us are affected by this pretty deeply. And so that forces the other 5 of us to be the bright lights, to recognize when people are shrouded in darkness or depression or mental illness, to be able to illuminate and try to pull them out of whatever situation they're in, or be able to get them to look at it differently, maybe to look at the positive side of things instead of always concerned that something's going to go wrong. That, and as Murphy's, there's the Murphy's Law thing, and you can buy into that entirely and make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. But we have to find ways to defy that also, and not accept that in every case. That ultimately it's one of those Irish things that some Irishman made up, and yeah, unfortunately it's stuck. And if you happen to have that name, you get tarred and feathered with that every once in a while. Sometimes justifiably so, sometimes not. So, but Chin, you were saying that your brother is a mental health professional. Is that right? Is he a doctor?
Yeah. He's actually in his residency over at Einstein over in Philadelphia.
Cool.
And so I had the honor of just kind of watching him on his journey through medical school and making his choices in regards to where he's going to focus. And, I won't forget how much he shared when he was doing a rotation in Los Angeles, how much he appreciated about the field. And so sure enough, he decided to focus on mental health. And so that's what he's pursuing right now.
Yeah.
And I can relate to a lot of what you're saying in regards to how challenging it could be in the family. I personally, have gone through some really challenging times with my career, even though we have my mom's a nurse, and my brother's practicing, he's going to be a doctor, but the personal aspect makes it very challenging. And it definitely, I can imagine it kind of tests people's frustration and their patience and their ability to kind of have empathy and understand. I feel like I've certainly tested my brother's patience at times.
Yeah.
And so I really thank him for the support that he's provided. And, I joined this blab just out of curiosity, in terms of, what we were going to talk about. I enjoyed our last blab talking about mindfulness, and we got into a really great conversation around meditation. And I thought it'd be interesting to forward that conversation in some form, because I think I show up as someone who has been invited, to consider medications. I explored it for a little bit myself. To share something personal, and I'm still very much at a point where I'm saying no to all that, and I definitely got to a point, I don't know, maybe about a month or two ago, where I was open, and I told the person that I was speaking to that I don't want to be saying no blindly, and my background is an engineer, and I realized that there's a choice here. And I started to realize that learning about what these medications do and their effects and their impact and what potential they have is something for me to learn.
Sure.
Rather than just to push it away. And so I found my conversations to be, a hell of a lot more engaging, with health professionals, listening inside of like, look, I need you to help me make a choice.
Yeah.
I have my own very strong perspective on what my life looks like without it. Please help me understand, what this world is and why people are on meds, what they're dealing with. What am I supposed to be listening for or looking for inside my own life?
Sure.
To really help drive that decision around whether it's a way forward or not.
Yeah.
And so that would be my, for anybody who's listening, who might be at that kind of crossroads in their life, that would be my invitation is to definitely be open to the conversation, even if you feel you're pretty firmly on the other side.
Yeah, I think, there's an issue with medication, and I've experienced this some as a lawyer, even serving as a legal guardian for two people that have mental illness. And so there were times where I was being asked to authorize medication to be administered to people, and I had to ask myself, okay, look, there's the issue of over medicating in some cases. which has its own effects depending on the strength of the medication. And, there's a half-life of a lot of medication. And my wife is a hospital pharmacist, so she talks about, the pharmacological impact of medication a lot. But I had to weigh those decisions for some of these people. And sometimes it was very difficult to even, convince myself that it was the right thing to do. But I think in a lot of the cases, there weren't other options. And unfortunately, the medical care system in the United States is so governed by, they have to do triage to some extent, like any medical professional would. So if someone comes in with an emergency situation, they're going to, get the fast track to care. But that unfortunately pressures some people to, some people that come to you with an emergency have one, and others that come to you with an emergency are trying to, maybe make it one to get help. And unfortunately that, I'm not sure that that's a good, if it's a legitimate emergency, that person should receive immediate care, obviously.
Yes.
And this became powerful to me in college too. There's one night where a friend of mine, his girlfriend, was suddenly suicidal and despondent, beside herself, depressed. And so my friend and I were the two that were trying to help her and talk to her and, get her in touch with the counselors at the school and figure out how to help her navigate that. And, if you've never dealt with that type of thing and you're suddenly thrown into the fire, it seems like that's happened over and over in my life. And finally I realized maybe some of those things happen for a reason, to prepare me for, more serious things that happen later that at the time I had no idea why I was going through these things. But that's a tough decision to know, when medication is the right path or not. But like we talked about with some of our previous discussions, I think a lot of us just have lost the ability to pause, to take a moment, recharacterize our emotions or identify which ones they are. Sometimes we think we're angry and we might be frustrated. And so there's, I think some of us, myself included, we've lost the ability to use some of our tools of emotional intelligence that are needed for times like that. And it's from those moments of slowing down, stopping, taking 5 minutes to figure out what's happening or why I'm feeling this way and that type of thing. And that really seems to help. Otherwise all of us can become consumed by the things that went wrong in the past and feel like we should have made a different decision and we could have directed things to the left instead of the right, or vice versa. And I don't know, we just can't live that way. We have to try to live in the present. And I think, the mindfulness we've talked about in some previous blabs, I think that's very helpful for a lot of people.
Yes, it's a reminder that I didn't meditate this morning.
Well, there's always an opportunity.
I'll be doing it after this.
I could even press pause and we could
we could meditate right here. Yes,
we'll lose our audience and probably our replay audience too. So.
Well, unless everybody would like to meditate with us, but I'm moved by your dad.
Lab, right?
Yeah. I'm moved by your dad's story. I think it's really fascinating, that he, took on a career as a dentist and retired and found himself in a place where he just didn't know what to do with his life. Because one of the things that I do as a consultant is I do support people in transition. Mm-hmm. And one of the methods that I discovered in 2013 is a method called the Business Model U. And it's a way to kind of be the CEO of your life and to kind of use this tool to kind of map your transition ongoingly. And so it's funny to hear you talk about, well, maybe things in life are meant to be, and they're meant to teach you certain life lessons or present certain circumstances because that's an area of growth for you. Mm-hmm. And, and I realized looking back, over the past 2 years, that my transition through my career has led me to discover this methodology to facilitate my own career transition into being an entrepreneur, and really learning how to develop support for myself as an entrepreneur, and transition away from the enterprise corporate support that I came from.
Yeah.
And it's taken me 14 years to really get to a place where I realize how big that gap is, and to really appreciate how I was supported in a corporation, and the amount of resources that were really thrown my way, and how generous that support was. I think I took a lot of that for granted. So this method has been pretty instrumental in supporting my redesign of my life, and to give my life some new purpose. And so it's only just been in the last 1 or 2 weeks that I've met some people here on Blab who've been other fellow coaches, who've been kicking my ass and getting this, this online business off the ground, and having me step into my power and my, myself as an entrepreneur, and help, and really standing that I facilitate, this method for other people, because I do it really well.
Sure.
And so it's been a fascinating journey, because I've definitely been through a lot of ups and downs, and it's led me to explore, my mental health, and really, is this just part of the journey, of an entrepreneur's journey, or is this something where I really need some medical support, through some health professionals? And I'm really happy to say that I'm really happy with where I am, and
good.
It's just been part of my journey, and just going through the ups and downs, and you find me definitely in a good place, and willing to kind of contribute and share on this lab.
Sure. Yeah. Transitions it's really tough to know what they mean or where they're going, as since you deal with them so much, until you get to the point of being able to apply hindsight to them or whatever. So, I don't know, I guess, we all have to look for warning signs in ourselves and others, or people that are struggling. And sometimes that means that we're going to be called on by people in crisis. And I remember having a friend in college saying, if you ever need somebody to talk to and nobody else will listen to you, call me. And that got my attention, because, nobody else was really saying that. That's the type of openness that I think a lot of us should have. But, we also have to, not only recognize the warning signs ourselves, but also notice them in others. I mean, if you have radical behavior differences, like what we noticed with my dad, we just, he suddenly was he's more of a type A personality, and suddenly he was, a type B, but making, impulsive decisions and things like that. I mean, very out of character for him. And so, and I think a lot of that was just, it was situational depression. And his model was his father, who retired from farming with no plans. So, even though my dad realized that was not the thing he wanted to do. I mean, that's what my grandpa showed him himself. And, unfortunately, my grandpa died short after that too. He was in his upper 80s, and but part of it is he didn't have a plan either. He didn't know what he was going to do, and I think that's why it's important for those of us that are still young enough to think about what we're going to do when we retire, to be able to figure that out now.
That's right.
Even if it's writing books, or painting or music, making films, whatever, especially if you have a creative gift, to be able to foster that now. And, my daughter says when she retires, she's going to move to France and paint paintings and sell them. And I'm kind of hoping she starts the sale of those paintings a little bit before retirement, so I can enjoy it a little more with her. But, so Anyway,
there's actually a blab, I think going later today or tomorrow with a French teacher to just invite people to just talk French with her.
I saw that.
Yeah, it might be a good one to invite your daughter to, if that's what she aspires to do.
Right. Yeah. All the French that I learned was, I sang some opera in college. We had one opera we had to sing in French. Nice. So, but whether I remember the words or what they meant, I seriously doubt it.
But I want to say something about creativity and how disruptive it is, because I don't know how long ago we spoke on our last blab. Has it been 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks?
The sleep and insomnia one. That one might have been 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. I think that was about the time when like whatever creativity was brewing in my mind was really causing me to lose a lot of sleep. Mm-hmm. And it was this idea that was just trying to come out and express itself. And I'm not a medical professional or health professional, but my perspective on the matter is that it can be pretty easy to mistake kind of this creative process, for a break in mental health. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit that, as an engineer who's learning, my right brain and the creative process, it's a pretty crazy process compared to this very rational, logical side of the engineering world.
Yeah.
And you sit there looking at it, and you look at what's happening, you look at the thoughts that are going through your mind, and it looks like you're going insane, mm-hmm. to the point where you discover meditation and you learn to kind of let go of those thoughts. But at the end of the day, you have to be functional in this world, and you have to be, we're all expected to have a career or vocation of some type, to kind of support ourselves. And so I think it was a couple of days after our blab that I listened to a podcast, I think on the Robin Zander show. And there was this TED speaker, Natasha, who was a dancer, who shared about her journey going through Singularity University. And she said the biggest thing she got out of Singularity University was learning to be disrupted. And like really inviting disruption into your life. And I know for many of you that might be listening, that's probably a recipe. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. And I'm telling you, I invited that day, and I remember getting on the phone with Robin and saying, you know what? I just listened to your podcast. I'm willing to be disrupted. I really get that this call and even this blab, that something will show up that will completely mix up my life and like make it unrecognizable, and it will drive me nuts. And it sure did for the next week.
Yeah.
And my second week on blab was a lot. It was like the second week I had a lot more clarity, and by the end of the second week, something had arisen. I had connected with people in blab that I really needed to have in my life. It was like spirits just kind of floating down and showing up, very randomly. And that wouldn't have happened unless I had the willingness, number one, to disrupt myself for the first week and go through a lot of chaos and almost go insane, and allow that second week to kind of embrace all that chaos and that mystery and the unknown, and stick with it so that the people who were willing to connect with me would actually show up. Yeah. And so this is my end of my third week of blab, and now people are supporting me in a new online business, and it's like, I'm like, wow, what does it mean to actually to keep embracing disruption, to keep embracing chaos, And I met this, I don't know if you saw her in the blab, Kristen, and she told me, I think 2 days ago, that, chaos is very nurturing to me. And I'm like, oh my God, are you on the other, she's been trained as a dancer and a choreographer, and so she knows this world of chaos is something that's good. And I'm like, I'm not I'm not quite there yet. I can see it has value, but I find it very disruptive to my mental health.
Yeah.
And I want to learn how to embrace, chaos in a way where it's supportive to my mental health. And so I still feel like I'm on like the my baby steps in starting this journey. And so thank you for just letting me share that with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure how random. You had the word random in there, and I'm not sure. I used to believe in pure coincidences, and I think I've, there are tiny moments that seem like that now, but I'm not sure there were. I don't know if there are any.
Yeah.
That's a great philosophical question. I would, well, it's my opinion. I would agree with Mark. I don't think it was random. I think it happened. It happened for a reason. The fact that people are supporting each other on Blab, stronger than some other platforms, like even Periscope, where you feel like you're talking to the wall or to nobody.
That's right. Yeah.
You wonder who's watching your Periscopes, and then you find out when you check your Twitter feed and say, "Oh, that was a friend watching," but they didn't want to pop up and show me that it was them during the broadcast.
Yeah.
Great, okay. But the concept of embracing chaos is fascinating to me. Partly just because every time chaos has surfaced in my own life, I've complained about it, and that's been the way I've handled it for 46 years of my life. And then last year I realized, after losing my job, that wasn't going to work for me anymore. That it was pulling me down. It was pulling my family down. I realized, I can't. I can't. I have to detach myself from chaos a little bit.
Yes.
And find ways to recharacterize it and try to look at the bright side of it. Try to look at the other side of what the disruption or chaos may cause or result in down the road. Not so much of what's happening, within the chaos, unless you get into the eye of a hurricane type of thought. So,
what did you say? I am a hurricane kind of thought?
No, the eye of the hurricane. The calm within the storm. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't speak it very clearly, maybe, but.
I'm trying to get my head around that. Is that the kind of acceptance that you are the eye of the hurricane, and like that you're actually relating to your life like it is a hurricane, and the source of the chaos.
It does allow you to. If you can think this, and this takes a little practice, but I've trained myself recently to be more stoic, to be more calm, to not overreact to everything, because otherwise, something goes wrong, and you've made a molehill into a mountain, and if you've done that for more than 40 years, life is short. We need to move on and make some mountains into molehills for a change.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
But this is great. Then people notice. Oh, why are you being so stoic? And it's kind of a long story, but I mean, the melancholic approach didn't work very well. I mean, it worked effectively for a while, but if you find that it's pulling you the wrong direction, you have to find a way to. Basically, I just decided to become an optimist and to deal with people that have problems that are pessimists, to try to make them more optimistic. A lot of people that are pessimistic, they do have mental health issues of some sort, and I think we have to try to respect and understand them in whatever way we can. And I think a lot of that is it's just listening. Sometimes we get so caught up in worrying about saying the right thing or that type of thing. And I think so many times those people just want somebody to listen without really feeling like they have to say something in response, but, to really truly be listening from the heart and soul, and not be judging them for what their illness is, or, putting them in a category where there's a stigma, not only against a person with mental illness, but also against their whole family. I mean, and then there's the issue of, you can't even talk about it in public. And, last year I realized that I had fallen out of touch with listening. People weren't listening to me, and I couldn't figure out why. And I dug to the bottom of that, and I realized, well, maybe it's because I stopped listening to them. and that was hard. I mean, to admit that oh, it might be my fault. I mean, that's, none of us wants to admit we're wrong. We want to be right all the time. But you
Yeah.
can't treat other people like punching bags to the extent that you know, you're taking shots at people to prove a point. I mean, that's kind of another trap that we lawyers fall into. We like to cross-examine our wives or our kids,
Oh, wow.
our families or friends, and then people say, why are you being so hostile? And you can't.
This is great. This is really great.
You can't blame it all
Wow.
in law school, but there's some of that is. But we have to unlearn some of our legal training and relearn our emotional intelligence, get back in balance sometimes.
Wow, this is amazing because I think you're really articulating a key learning that I had this past week, and I think you caught part of a blab that I was hosting with Naomi and Fatima this past Tuesday, and
Right.
Fatima was someone that I had learned to listen newly, and I love it how you're talking about unlearning your legal training, because there was a moment before we joined that lab where I had realized that, oh my God, I am being a consultant and an engineer with this woman, and I was either the engineer who wanted to fix things all the time, or I was the consultant, trying to kind of strategically, figure out where we're going and everything like that. And it wasn't until I was on this phone call and she said, like, I need you to, I'm a request that you listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of woke up at that moment, like, okay. It was like that invitation to put the engineer's hat down, to put the consultant's hat down, and just listen to whatever she was dealing with. And she would kind of share, and she'd have a big story, and she'd go into, all these little rat holes. And I had to kind of like suspend my automatic way of trying to fix the situation and just hear her out and validate, what she was feeling, and to not try to solve anything. And if anything, she even got to a point where she even asked me, like, well, what would you do? And like kind of like asked, like almost bring the consultant back in, because I think she was so used to it. And I just zipped my mouth, and I didn't zip my mouth entirely, but I came from a place like letting her choose what she felt she needed to do next. And when I gave her the freedom to kind of lead her own life, there was a huge opening in our partnership. It was like we had been living a partnership where I felt like I might have been taking the lead the entire time. And we even got to a point where a frustration where I said, I need you to start leading. And then she got frustrated inside of that. And I think in that moment when I was on the phone with her, it was really clear that I was inviting her to lead, but I was inviting her to lead in something she was dealing with in her own life, and something that was very personal to her, and something where she just needed me to listen. And that created a lot of workability. And I think it created the power to get on to Blab and have that conversation with Naomi and just share really openly, and feel safe with each other. And so to any engineers that are listening out there is a lot of value to putting the engineer down and just learning to recreate the other person and seeing what comes out of that. You'll be amazed at what happens. It's quite a miracle.
That's an interesting insight that, as coaches, a lot of times our clients or customers, they're looking to us for the answer. And I think a lot of time they do know what the answer is. Yes. And I think sometimes if we do pause and hesitate and let them answer it first, or say what the answer might be, it might be pretty close to the correct answer. So I don't know. That's just interesting that you mentioned that. It made me think of, I think a lot of times we do have the answers to the problems that we face. We're looking for confirmation or ratification from someone else for, what the solution to the problem is, whether it's a chaotic, unexpected development. And I mean, we have to expect chaos. We have to prepare for it. We have to expect it. And we kind of have to, we have to crush it in advance by visualizing it. And the more we can do that, not knowing what those chaotic events are, but the more that we can do that either before the chaos strikes or when it strikes, I think the better off we are. You know, I think without the power of visualization, I think a lot of chaotic events, they just, I mean, it feels like the end of the road when in fact it's not. You know, it feels like a dead end when you really have 2, 3, or 50 potential paths. And, you know, that's kind of that's one thing I wanted to bring up. You know, people that are dealing with mental health issues, I think a lot of times there's just a fear that it's the end, that there's no way out, that you're stuck in quicksand. There's no line or anyone there to help you. And, you know, helping those people see that there is really an abundance to life, that life offers them, you know, unlimited opportunities if they have the courage to explore them. And sometimes that requires some help, some coaching, some therapy, or some combination of those. Sometimes it's just a matter of discovering creative pursuits that the person might have talent in, you know, whether it's music, dance, art, theater, you name it. There's so many creative pursuits that can help with that type of thing. But I think being able to in order to show other people abundance, we have to be able to find that within ourselves. And I think if we can do that and radiate that to other people, it's almost impossible for them to not pick up on that and start to see it. And then they realize that it may be able to help them also.
Yes. And I love the point you made before in regards to just grounding and, you know, really taking the time to slow down in your life. And I think what I'm hearing now is that chaos is great to be able to handle it when it happens, because life is unexpected. And so to have the capacity to be grounded and handle an unexpected event and be with the chaos and be able to kind of return to a grounded or stay grounded is an art. And it's great to bring disruption into your life, you know, as a choice, you know, and feel like, well, I chose to be disrupted, you know, by inviting people to disrupt me, and really feel that you still have a choice in the matter, you know, to disengage or to move on, or to come back to a grounded space, you know, where, you know, that's what you feel you need.
Yeah.
And so I love it that we're both on this journey, you know, and centering ourselves and grounding ourselves, and really, you know, attending to our mental health in regards to how we deal with these disruptions in our life. Sure. You know, whether they're unexpected or whether they're chosen.
Yeah, and I think you've identified a key thing that I'd mention. You know, we get in these patterns of thinking that we understand the way things are, and we find that what we're having is more like tunnel vision, and we're closed-minded, and we're not open to other people or other insights or things that might conflict with our point of view on something. And I think a lot of times our point of view is actually strengthened by having openness to understanding what other people's points of view are. And I've found, you know, this is difficult for myself. I mean, as an attorney, you know, part of what makes us successful is the ability to make rational, quick legal judgments on issues. Fortunately, we find that we're making those snap judgments on other things too, things where the snap judgments don't work. And so this openness that you're talking about, I think it's very powerful to be able to make that a part of your life. And, you know, it opens up new possibilities to have that capacity for openness. And I guess abundance is maybe synonymous with openness in this discussion to some extent, but that openness to other points of view, it can open unlimited possibilities for all of us, I think.
Absolutely.
Might not even be able to predict or, you know, even perceive of in our minds. I mean, we have the finite ability to perceive what could happen. So,
yes. So what what can we invite our listeners to? How do you envision people embracing, World Mental Health Day today? What is how can people bring positivity in their life today, given our discussion?
Well, I think one way, I think almost all of us know at least, one person who may have mental illness or depression or both. And I would encourage all of you to pick up the phone or, whatever means of contact you have with that person, and just let them know you're thinking about them, that you love them unconditionally for who they are, and not, regardless of what their illness or challenge is. And I think that's a key thing, to be able to reflect that unconditional love to people that have mental illness. If they don't receive that, they can't function well and be positive. And even those of us without mental illness, we have that same need for unconditional love, but we fail to deliver on that. We just forget. We get caught up in ourselves and, selfishness and selfish motives. And, but I'd encourage people to try to contact someone that you might know who has mental illness or depression, or just offer to help them with, the smallest thing, the smallest random act of kindness. And if we could unleash thousands of those on a day like this, I think it'd be meaningful, because I think it would result in a chain reaction that might trigger other people to do the same. And to really be able to embrace people that have mental illness, and be able to talk to them, and maybe more importantly, be able to listen to them. We probably talk too much and listen too little. We have one mouth for speaking, and we have twice as many ears for listening, and maybe we should be listening twice as much. People confront me sometimes. They think I'm too quiet, but a lot of times I'm either listening or I'm still processing what they're saying. And sometimes it might take me a while, because I might try to figure out what's between the lines, or what they're getting at, or what the point is. But to really be able to listen to them, embrace them, to love them unconditionally, and to try to get these people help. Sometimes that means financial help. Sometimes it means, being able to help them get governmental benefits, or they need something for their house or apartment, or they need money for food, or a card for gas or something like that. The smallest gift or a token of appreciation for people that struggle with this would be very meaningful. And I say that as someone who has family members and many friends that have struggled with this. And some of them I've anyone that has this type of issue come up, I try to help them to the best of my ability. And if I find that I'm over my head, I will refer them to psychiatrists or psychotherapists or psychologists. I'm not trained in this beyond a certain point. So, I think we all have to realize our capacity to help, to be part of treatment teams that, may look at these issues on behalf of family and friends, and to be, just to be a friend to someone that has mental illness or mental health issues. A lot of these people don't have a lot of friends, and the friends they do have turned against them, and their families have maybe turned against them. They're just, there's some embarrassment that a lot of people feel with people that have mental illness or mental health issues. So, Kelly mentioned I guess he reaffirmed the 2 ears to 1 mouth ratio.
I like that.
Proportionate. That's very good. And then to laugh a lot more. That's Kelly. I'm glad you brought up the laughter issue, because that's people think I'm too serious, and they, I'm trying to be more open to humor and that type of thing. And some of the, there was a World Day for Laughter earlier this year, and I was on a Google Hangout learning how to laugh effectively with people that were laughter yoga experts.
Yes.
I've never heard of laughter yoga. Have you?
Oh, I did it for the first time last month. It's great.
I've heard of yoga, but I've never, so the same day I ran the Lincoln Marathon, in the evening, we had a World Day of Laughter Google Hangout, and I didn't really know what I was doing as an untrained laugher, but I got a lot of I've got a lot of appreciation for laughter and humor from that, and just following people that are kind of laughter gurus. They are out there, and some of them are on Blab and also at Google Hangouts or Twitter, and our kids laugh way more than we do. You're right about that. They know how to handle that. But yeah, Laughology, that would be a
it's a very good documentary.
Just to retrain, we talk about losing our emotional intelligence. I think that does include, we're good at being angry to more than we should be. We probably don't cry as much as we should. Sadness isn't channeled correctly. But happiness also isn't calibrated correctly. So, we have to have the capacity to be happy and to make that, maybe the most important thing behind helping others become happy and have their needs met. And I think if we can really focus on others and focus on their needs, focus on how to get them to the finish line, I think all of us will be able to really be able to be more productive and really get more value from giving than receiving. I mean, yes, it's great to receive things, but it's much more gratifying to give something, especially if someone can't give anything back. And that's the beauty of helping people with mental illness or mental health issues. A lot of them can't give anything back besides maybe their unconditional love and maybe a thank you. And maybe sometimes they're going to be too disturbed to even be able to say thanks in a meaningful way or in a way that we might appreciate. But we have to be able to receive whatever thanks they may give, but realize that it's more important to give, to give them love and appreciation for who they are, and to be able to illuminate that in the brightest extent possible, to look at the highest mountain you could see them reaching and to point to that regularly with them without blowing it out of proportion, but saying, hey, look, you could do this, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing volunteer work? Have you thought about, using your skills? And, some people with mental health issues and mental illness are great at talking with people. And I do want to talk about one person who died last year, Robin Williams. Comedian, fantastic, one of the funniest people I think I've ever heard in my life. And I guess this was meaningful in a couple ways to me. One, he was just so darn funny, and everything he said was funny. And, he just had an uncanny ability to make all of us laugh, even when we didn't want to, even when we were kind of feeling like, well, is it really, some humorists, you have to wonder, is this really funny, or is this kind of on the borderline? Well, maybe give you a laugh, but maybe not mean it. We didn't have that with Robin. And I guess it would also, he shared a birthday with me. And so every year on my birthday, I'd open the paper and you look at who else has a birthday on the same day. And, and Robin Williams did. And, I don't want to get into why this happened or why it ended the way it did or whatever, but I think a lot of us just have to realize that even the people that seem like they're on the height of greatness and have nothing going wrong and that type of thing, that even people at that level can be struggling in ways that we have no idea that they are. And we have to be able to accept them and be able to realize that, anyone could ask us for help. Anyone can be struggling with this type of issue. It could be, any of us or anyone that we know in the future. So just be aware that, you could be called on by someone struggling with this issue sometime in your life. And if you are, I would urge you to try to remember what we talked about and just try to find a way to help them, whether it's listening or, helping financially, directing them to the right place where they could receive federal or state benefits if they're qualified for those. There are also veterans that have mental illness. And, my father's one of those who is being assisted by the, the Veterans Administration helps veterans that have, disabilities of this nature. And so, be cognizant of the people that are older that are struggling with depression. You get older, you have huge transitions with empty nests, retirement. People will lose a spouse as they get older with unexpected death and that type of thing. Or even if it's someone passes away and it's expected, it's a huge transition to move on without that person if you've been together for 50 years or 30 years or however many years in marriage. So just be aware this could happen to anyone. It could happen to our children, our nieces, nephews, friends. But if people call you with this type of problem, just to try to help them in whatever way you can. And if you find that it's something over your head, try to be able to refer them to medical professionals who can take it from there. Those people know what they're doing, and people like me can probably only help you so far as being able to move on with positivity and happiness and that type of thing. But but for some people, they may require medication, may require hospitalization in some cases, but I'd encourage you to try to look at unconventional alternative methods like we talked about with mindfulness, meditation, exercise we didn't really talk about, but that'd be another thing I would recommend. I think people that are struggling with mental illness or mental health issues that have, are exercising regularly, you at least get the endorphins going, and those will assist a lot of people in a natural way, instead of having to maybe choose the medication route. And even exercise like Tai Chi is very powerful as far as, incorporating the mindfulness dimension. And I'm not very good at Tai Chi. I'm trying to learn it from David Dorian Ross and some others, but, hopefully I'll get to the point that at least David Dorian Ross might be happy with what I'm doing with Tai Chi, but I'm still very much of a neophyte on the issue. So I'd encourage all of you to try to help in whatever way you can. Want to thank Mark and Kelly for joining us today. And anyone else have any questions or anything? It looks like everybody else has left us. And Kelly,
we're at top of the hour, so that's great.
We're going to laugh our way out.
Yes.
Are you ready to do laughter to end this, Chin? Are you comfortable with that or not? Or is that
laughter like ha, ha, ha.
Real or feigned? Take your pick.
I'm laughing already, so it's
all right. Here we go. We're just gonna laugh our way out because that's part of dealing with this issue. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll return to this issue. And just wanted to raise some awareness with mental health and mental illness. And I hope this has been helpful to you. And feel free to contact either of us if you want to discuss it further or want to talk about mindfulness in the future. Hopefully we'll have some future blabs on that topic, and we'll go from there. All right?
Yeah.
Have a great Saturday, everybody. Have a good World Mental Health Day.
Yes. Reach out to someone. They'll really, really appreciate it. And you might be that bridge to the professional help that they need. So,
right. Yep.
So,
be happy, be positive, lend someone a helping hand who needs it. All right?
Yeah, that's right.
Bye,
okay.
everybody.
All right. Happy World Mental Health Day.